because there is such thing as being too big for certain niches. So just throwing that out there.
We like to say that with our channel. Like, there's big booktubers out there, but look, come comfortable right in here. We can still be somewhat authentic. We're not bought by Audible yet, but when you see the Audible ads coming up, you know we've lost everything. Welcome back, everybody, to another Tutor Ramble episode. I'm Austin.
And I'm Richard.
We have a very special guest today. Lynn, ahead of Lynmore Publishing, is here, and this is a big attention to all readers and publishers out there. He has this great Kickstarter, this great startup publishing company, and I will let him take it from there and introduce himself, because I am super excited. We backed the Kickstarter. He is not paying us to be here. This is just a very cool guy with a really, really inventive idea. Welcome to the pod.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me on. Yeah, like you said, I started Lynmoorehouse, which is a publishing company that is entirely crowdfunded. I'm sure there's a lot of ins and outs that we'll get into during this podcast, but it is a lot different than anything that I had seen in the market. And as long as the people want it, it will be here.
Fantastic. And we here on Tutor Ramble are hacks, so I'm going to completely copy something you said on one of your TikToks that really drew me to you, is that you said you want this publishing house to be the A24 of publishing. And right when I heard that, I went, that's our guy. So can you go on that? Because that really struck a chord with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, it was, I'm sure we're all fans of like movies, TV, and books. People aren't typically fans of one. So when I was looking at like the TV or movie world, I don't see people that follow Universal or that follow MGM or something like that. The only company that I could think of where they followed the actual production studio was A24. Like, people talk, that is the big thing, that if an A24 movie is coming out, you have a general vibe of what you're going to get. You don't really know the story that they're going to tell. You don't know who the director is. You might not have ever heard of a single actor that they have up there, but you know that it is going to be a little bit different. And different could mean good, different could mean bad. It could mean for you, not for you, but you know the general vibe. And the same thing was true in the publishing space. I don't know anybody that buys a book just because Tor put it out or because Penguin Random House. You know, books are the most difficult medium to invest your time into. Like a movie, you can watch the whole thing, it takes 2 hours, or you could watch a trailer that's 2 minutes and decide if it's for you. Books don't have that. We like to pretend that it's the back cover, but that doesn't tell us anything about the writing style or the arc of the story. So it's about building that trust. A24 has built that creative trust with the audience that when they put it out, you're going to get a certain bar. And I wanted to do the same thing in the publishing space, that you can't get too big. You know, if A24 started putting out 40 movies a year, it wouldn't keep that quality up, which is why we've dedicated to only putting out 12.
Yes, and that 12, so the goal is to have one author a month submit their manuscript to you. And could you explain that process? So for any authors listening right now, they can send you their manuscripts and potentially get published.
Yeah, so Lynmoorehouse.com, we have a little script that you got to go through that tells us how many words it is. You got to fill out your name, email, and that type of stuff, and then you just upload the full script to us. Typically, if you know, authors are really used to sending to agents, and they'll only ask for the first 10 pages or the first 3 chapters. I want the entire thing, because especially when I really like it, I'm going to read the whole thing in one night. I'm going to get the whole vibe of your story and see what's going on, to where I can email you and go, hey, I love these pieces. I didn't love these pieces. Are you open to changing some things, or working with an editor to try and work out a deal as fast as possible? So whereas agents typically go, I'm going to read the first 3. If I like it, I'll ask you for the rest. I want the whole thing up front.
Well, for potential authors out there, what type of books are you looking for that you want sent to you?
Yeah, so this was something I spent a lot of time on, because it's difficult. How do I put this? I think that some people are really bad at giving book recommendations, because what they do.
Oh, was that directed at us? Have you seen our stuff? Is that a slight?
It's not directed at you.
I saw you look into the camera. I don't know.
This is towards the TikTok world, where they will just like get on there and yell and be like, I loved it. It's enemies to lovers. It's this, it's that. And you're like, all right, that doesn't tell me anything about it. That like you told me some of the tropes I'm going to come across, but is the writing style similar to something else? What feeling does it give me? Because that's ultimately what it is. When somebody reads a book, they're chasing a feeling. And so does it give me the same feeling that this other book gave me, or does it have the same trope that this other book had? Because that's not the same thing. So when I was looking at mine, I was going, what are the books that gave me specific feelings? And what is that feeling that I want to recreate with the books that we publish? And some of those were Mistborn, Piranesi, Red Rising. I can't even remember what some of the others are right now.
Sword of Kagan was one of them.
Sword of Kagan, yeah, that book was...
That I mentioned that as well because we have a quick plug for ourselves. We have a Patreon, and that's our book club of the month that we're reading with some of our fans. I just finished it myself. We're gonna have videos on it. Do not worry.
I'm almost done with it. I think I'm about 150 pages out from finishing right now.
You know, so well, I'll circle back to the books that we were talking about. But Wraithmarked, do you guys know who they are?
Yes.
All right. So Wraithmarked recently did a limited edition of the Sword of Kaigen, and they messaged me on Kickstarter, back to the platform. They did an email blast out to their backers and told them to go to our Kickstarter.
Whoa, that's great.
The CEO emailed me and was like, hey, man, when we were going through the logo thing, so we had a logo that belonged to somebody else. We didn't know it. It was copyrighted. The designer had double sold it. I made a video about that. The CEO of Wraithmark emailed me and said, hey, if you need a new one and like need some help with it, I'll pay for it.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you know, and I ended up turning it down because I have a designer buddy or whatnot, but they're so nice and have been so supportive. So I just wanted to give them a shout out because I haven't talked about that anywhere else yet.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. That's incredible because
they do some great work. Seeing some of their special edition covers, like, oof.
Yeah. And for our listeners who don't know, this Kickstarter that you started had a goal of 15,000 and it ended with almost hitting 40,000. So you over doubled your goal. You have 899 backers, two of us. We are two of your backers. We can't wait for the book. And the reason we also backed it is we saw your fantastic breakdown. And that's more of a 5-minute thing you could check on Lyn's TikTok here.
And I think it'll probably be in the description below.
Yeah, all of your stuff will be in the description below. You guys can check that out. So when looking at what the benefits were, there are so many benefits for readers to be involved in this. Not just can authors get published, but could you go over the breakdown of what readers get by backing this project and by staying with Lynmoorehouse?
Yeah, that's another thing that took a lot of time to go through here because I was sitting around talking with some of the people that I work in publishing, and I was going, how do you create a value proposition to where this is the case? Because I know some other people who have tried to do similar things where you fund it up front, and they were going, we can't figure out the value proposition because it just doesn't make sense. They're going to pay an abnormal price for a book, which I think the hardcover I charge like $35. So the first question is, why would somebody pay $35 instead of $20 at Barnes & Noble? And then it's why would they pay more for that, for an ebook or an audiobook? Why would they pay for it for a book that they don't even know what it is from an author that they like? Literally anybody watching this who you don't know who I am. When people bought into this, I didn't promise an author. I didn't promise a specific story. I said, I'm going to try and print something within these parameters. Like I said, Mistborn, Piranesi, Red Rising, Sword of Kaigen. And it's basically like, and I hope you guys all went out on a branch with me to see if we can hit this, right? And that is a crazy thing. Who else, in what other industry are you going to buy something before it exists that you don't know what it is? I'm aware how crazy it sounds, you know? And so going through that value proposition was going, well, the only thing that I can think of is to bring the readers in on the process. So giving weekly updates, a lot like Brandon Sanderson does in terms of where we're at with the business, promising to bring you in on the business itself, giving financial information about picking the stories, how many submissions we have received, what the processes look like. Because the opposite of that is the publishing, traditional publishing, where people don't know what's going on at all. Like it is difficult to find traditional publishing information. And I wanted to go, well, why don't I just take the caps off of this and show you the inside look, you know, who we partner with, what these timelines look like, which we're in the very early stages. There will be so much information that comes out over the next 6 months because our first book is due in September. But the main value proposition was bring the readers in by creating a Discord, an email service, and eventually we will build out our own website to where people have a portal to log into to where they can see the books that they've signed up for.
And one of the coolest additions as well, which, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but we are huge on book communities and love book clubs. Having one of our own, we saw that the authors that you get each month will have a book club with the readers at the end of said month. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The month that the book comes out, we will do an exclusive book club for the people that backed it with the author. And we wanted to do exclusive instead of open, partly to give the value proposition back to the people who gave the money in, but also to make it intimate. I don't expect, you said we had 899 backers. And also a big middle finger to the 900 one. We did have 900. He backed out at the last moment.
Oh,
And I was staring at my computer, like watching the timeline go down, and I go, "Don't do it! Don't you do it!" He did it.
I'm sorry. I just got. I was tight on cash. I kind of regretted it. So I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. So to make it intimate, we had 900 backers. I don't expect all of them to participate. Even in the Discord, about 600 have signed up. And on a daily basis of what that book club is going to look like, I probably expect 100 to 150 to be active participants. So it allows you to actually have FaceTime with the author and talk about the story and what their process is like. Because people are going to nerd out on different aspects of it. Some people are going to nerd out on the final product. Some people who want to be writers are going to nerd out on the upfront aspect of how did you come up with the story and develop it.
Right.
So allowing that intimate space was a really important thing for me.
Right.
It really sounds like a lot of your success, especially as coming from a failure in the current publishing industry.
Yeah, let's trash them right now. Yeah, let's trash the traditional five.
It's not even trashing. It just seems that along with your success, I think Brandon Sanderson, with his big Kickstarter, kind of opened a door to that money is currently being left on the table that the traditional publishing houses just aren't picking up on. And it takes people like Sanderson and yourself to pick up this extra money that people kind of want to give you guys.
Yeah, he's a huge inspiration in all of this. I mean, I've followed him for a long time and they've had their blunders, but the thing that I admire about him is that he's also trying to take the caps off, the lenses off, and show people what it's like to do this. And especially, I see you've got Tress on your shelf right there. I don't know when you guys received yours. I received mine about 4 months late. I didn't care. I didn't care because I understood that this was a growing thing that was bigger than what they expected it to be. They had logistics to work out. It's probably similar things that I'm going to run into. But I appreciate how open they are about those problems and trying to solve them. But in regards to the big five and how my company works with it, I think that new companies specifically, should exist to solve problems. And in every industry, there are problems, and this is how you get a niche, is you discover a small enough problem that you think you can solve and then go after it. And then companies typically grow by adding new niches to that. And so the main one that I am trying to fix, as was outlined in the Kickstarter, was if you are a no-name author, you are getting bad deals or no deals by publishers because they want to give advances to people who believe that they're going to sell books, because an advance is basically a loan. It is not just money in your pocket. You have to pay it back. And in order to get that advance, they have to have some metric that you are going to sell books. Well, if I don't have a platform, so Joe No Name, 0 followers on every platform, wrote the greatest book that has ever existed, and Tor goes and gives them a deal on it. How do people find out about that book? They can put it on their Instagram, but if you go to their Instagram, they mainly promote their big authors, TJ Klune and V.E. Schwab and stuff. And I get it, because there's a value proposition of when you do a blast, how much sales you get in return. You go to their Twitter, they're very good about tweeting about new books because it's a higher information stream platform. But like I outlined in the Kickstarter video, the new books get 15 likes. Tor has 300,000 followers. That's not Tor's fault. I'm not saying that they're bad people or doing something wrong. I'm saying the audience doesn't give a shit. Why would they? They don't know who that author is. They don't know anything about that book. So the only way to fix it is to pre-establish a group of, well, two ways. Either the author has a following of their own, or somebody gives them a following. And that is basically what Lynmoorehouse is. You bought the book up front. I'm expecting you to read it because you've already invested money in it. And we just want to give them a platform of, if the book is good, here's 899 people instead of 900 who are reading your book the day that it comes out, who are willing to tell other people about it. Because we all know that books only spread by word of mouth. Every book I have ever picked up, it wasn't because of an ad that I saw. It was because a TikToker or a YouTuber was telling me about, or a friend. You know, I wanted to provide that infrastructure, the word of mouth infrastructure, to these authors.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that's the same for us as well, as we're all word of mouth. And I don't think I've ever picked up a book because I saw a tweet by Tor. And a lot of that has to be because Tor, Orbit, all these publishers have so many books they're publishing every year. You lose track. And when there's such quantity, I don't know if that's good, because I don't trust the source of Tor. Could be a fantastic book, which they have many, or just an all right book. Whereas your goal here is you're being more selective about, it will be 12 books a year, and really focused on the quality. And your pitch to readers, your pitch toward readers is that, hey, if you like stuff like Red Rising, if you like stuff like a sort of Kagan or Kaigan, I keep saying it wrong, these are the kind of novels we'll have, and that feeling you got from those. And the readers will trust you more as they see the work that you're publishing.
It seems that's the hardest hurdle I think you're going to overcome. The first one was, of course, money to get off the ground, but the next big hurdle is building that trust, and that's only going to come naturally from your first book to your second. And if those are successes, then I imagine it'll just snowball from there.
Without question. And there's certainly some other hurdles in between there, but that is the number one thing I'm feeling the pressure of right now, is what book to pick and why are you picking it? Because there have been some that have come across my desk that are actually pretty good, but I don't think that they fit the audience that I pitch to. And so it would feel like a lie picking that one, because it's just outside of those parameters. And so how do you find something within those parameters that you think is right for your audience, that is good enough for your audience? But there's another thing that I actually wanted to announce on here, if you guys don't mind.
Fantastic.
So the Kickstarter was pitched as, this is book one, and for future rounds of funding will not be on Kickstarter, but this is just to see if the audience wants this and to what level they'll get behind it. And I went on to talk about how we would do one of these a month and put out 12 books a year. So May 1st, the Kickstarter's ended. May 1st, the subscription plan is going to open, and it's going to open as quarterly. So the first year of books is not going to be 12, because I think that I would be putting myself in a corner trying to grow that fast. Versus if I do it in May and allow for 2 months, it would then go to July 1st. So you can sign up for the subscription for 2 months. July 1st, that puts us on a quarterly plan with the year, and because that's halfway through the year. And we would then do 4 more books outside of Kickstarter. And in January, let me break down the whole timeline here. Book 1 is due in September. If you sign up for the July one, that is actually January's book. And then it goes quarterly until the end, right? For an entire year. So we would put out 5 books in the span of 18 months. And if we get the growth that is necessary, build that trust with the audience where the books are the level that they should be, then we will move to yearly. And if we don't, this was an experiment and it's on to the next thing. I'm not, I don't think I'm jaded about that. This could technically fall apart at any point. I could open up the subscriptions and 200 people sign up. That's not enough money. It dies. I want to do as much as I can to help the community and to help the publishing space, but it's going to take money that I don't have. So it's kind of a back and forth here. And I hope that people will show up for it just like I did with the Kickstarter, but we're going to see what happens.
Well, I can guarantee you this video, we can give you all the proceeds of YouTube analytics, we get about $1.50, I'd say, per video. So we'll send that right over to you. Every dollar counts, you know.
Every dollar counts. I appreciate it. All right.
And I'm very curious, what's the foundation right now of your team looking like? Because it's very much startup, so I imagine you can't play a ton of employees. You guys are very much on the foot. So what's the team you have backing this currently?
Officially, it's me. That's the whole thing. And this is kind of a part of the 4 books, you know, going to quarterly instead of yearly, is having worked in publishing. So I'm a publishing production manager. I have dealt with every aspect of what it takes to deliver a book. And it is, sometimes it's large teams, sometimes it is a lot of contractors. So typically the things contracted out for a smaller company is going to be an editor, maybe 2 editors, a line editor and a developmental editor. It's going to be a cover designer, a typesetter, and then it's going to, once all of that is done, it's going to ship off to get printed. It's like, okay, well, we're about to print 900 books. Where do they go afterwards? I don't have enough money to buy a warehouse. So you have 2 options. You can do warehouse, third-party warehousing, which is basically you send the books to them, and for a fee, they will process each one as it goes out. Or my plan, which is for only 900 books, I'm going to ship them out myself.
Wow.
You're going to have a few more books behind you than what you got right now.
That's right.
So that is a growth thing, where if it was over 1,000 books, I would probably have to do a warehousing option. Once we get to 5,000 books a month, it would be worth getting our own warehouse. So you just scale it throughout time. In terms of advisors, I'm surrounded by really good people that I've had the opportunity to work with. But actually working for Lynmoorehouse, it's just me.
What is your background in the publishing space that led you to being able to have this startup and get into this position?
So I was an intern under the director of publishing of a company that you've never heard of, but did fairly well for themselves. I was an intern for about 6 months, and then they had a client who was starting to break through their ceiling and needed a dedicated person, and that became me, because their mindset was, well, you're only going to be managing one person, so to go from intern to this isn't that big of a gap. And basically just scaled throughout that and brought on more and more clients, to where I was personally responsible for about $3 million a year in sales, and the distribution and marketing campaigns of all of that. But facilitating, I mean, that's what a production manager is I line up with teams to make these things happen. So I was hiring the designers and the editors and being a liaison between them and the author. Once all of that was completed, I was getting printing quotes from a couple different companies who can, deliver best. Once they were delivered, managing the marketing campaigns with the delivery dates to where people knew about the books, and then managing shipping depots and numbers after that, because you have a burn rate of books. So, which is a terrible expression in the industry, but if you're selling 200 a day and you only have 5,000 on hand, and it's going to take 12 weeks to get new ones, how long do you have before you have to order new books and go through this whole process again? So I dealt with all of that for a company and just brought it over into my own space.
It sounds like you're doing exactly what you do for the other company. It sounds exactly the same.
I tried to be as open about that as possible on the Kickstarter. Yeah. Some people fluff up their resumes, and I was like, look, I've done these things. I have not done these things. It is what it is. I'll either figure it out or I won't.
So you are going to be the one deciding the manuscript that makes it, that book that goes to everybody. And obviously you might have advisors and someone that reads stuff over, but it comes down to you're checking out these manuscripts and, hey, this is the one we're going to put out.
I hate that the answer to that is yes, but I don't know what else to do about that, to be honest with you.
It really sounds like you need a rating scale. Maybe something like the Rambler rating scale. I don't know. Maybe that would help.
That's what our whole channel is based on. It's
guys, send that over to me. I'll review it and go through it. Yeah. I thought about like beta reader programs, or do you open it up to the people who backed it and get their opinion? But that creates a logistical nightmare, because what if somebody leaks a book? Then I'm responsible for that, because it's not a book under contract with us. It's just a submission that people are trying to see if we should release it. So until there, I would love to get to a place where there's a couple assistants where it's got to go through like, all right, this person said yes, now this person, then it goes to final approval. But again, we're in the early days. This is wholeheartedly a startup, and we're operating on startup margins. So yeah, unfortunately, because I don't even like that myself. What if I get it wrong? It's a lot of pressure on me, and my reputation could go down the drain because I print a POS. But we're gonna see.
What happens if someone's sending you a book one and it's part of a series? Do you publish along their series, or would it just be the, hey, we're going to publish your book one, and then, because since you're doing 5 a year, I imagine it can't be just 5 from one author. How would that work?
Right. No, I would intend it to be different authors. The main question that I have here that I'm still working through is I think that it goes against our principles to make a secondary month for a second book, because that takes away a release date from a different author who should be in that spot. I also don't think it's fair to the audience to give them a high quality book that they can't get anywhere else for book one, and then a mass market paperback for book two. That doesn't make any sense, right? So for authors who come up with sequels, I think that there will be secondary rounds where if you liked the first book and you want a second book of the same quality, you purchase it ahead of time, and we'll just do it that way. Again, I don't really know what else to do with that, because you can't not print it, but if you do print it, it takes a slot away from somebody else. So you'd kind of have to do it separate.
Okay. So there's no... the book will get out there. It's not like they'll have to wait super long, or if it's a book one, they'll eventually get their second book.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of it getting out there, doing it separate would also mean that it doesn't have to adhere to the timeline of Lynmoorehouse. As soon as it's ready, it could be printed. Instead of, it needs to fall into the 4th slot of the second year because we've got books lined up for the other ones. We could just release it when it's right.
And for the authors, how does the contract work with Lynmoorehouse?
That is not set up yet. And the reason it's not is because there's no standard template in the industry. Authors may want different money for different things. So they want more, they'll be willing to take more money for ebooks if it's less money for physical copies. Some people might want to invest a lot of money into the audio quality. So I want a higher percentage of audio take away from the other two, of ebook and physical. As a broad answer, it's a royalty basis. They'll be paid a percentage of the sale price, and those prices will probably be different for the funding round versus the public round, right? Because like we're printing a book for the Kickstarter that is going to be a high quality version that you can't get anywhere else. There will be a secondary version that people can buy on the open market. Prices for those two and production costs for those two are different, so the royalty payout will be different.
Okay, that makes sense. And go ahead, Rich.
You mentioned audio. I'm curious. Are these books going to be audiobooks that go onto Audible or on different platforms?
Another thing to work through, and one of the things that I'm going to open up to the audience and for the author as well. I am not a fan of Amazon's policies. I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, Amazon owns Audible, Goodreads, Kindle. Yeah. They own it all. They royally screw people, especially in terms of audiobooks. I think the number is, if you're exclusive on Audible, you get 40% of the sale.
As the author gets that sale, right?
Yeah.
Only 40%.
If you're not exclusive, it's like 25%. And like both of those numbers suck. That's terrible for the author.
Taking 75% just sounds like it. That's robbery.
It is robbery.
It's just thieving.
Yeah, it's another one of the things that Brandon Sanderson is trying to fix, and has been open about moving to other platforms. So in terms of delivery, I want that to be a thing that we vote on as a community, but I also want the author to have a say, because Audible, the reason they take that much is because they give you exposure that you can't get anywhere else. There's a cost for that. But if the author wants to go, no, I've got my principles and I'm not doing business with them, okay, we're going to back that. It's not going on Audible.
Okay,
So
it's good that you're giving the authors the option, though.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that I said in the Kickstarter was like, this isn't a dictatorship. I am a part of this community. I am a reader. I'm not the guy up on the hill in the golden castle. Like, tell me how you want this to operate, even from a moral standard, and let's meet at the table. Because there's a difference between what you want to do and what you can do. Just because you want to do something doesn't mean you can feasibly make that happen. But if we can feasibly make it happen, hell yeah, let's change some things.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And would you say then for the purpose of the big five publishers, what would you say is the main thing they're missing out on? If you opposed to the big five, what's the main benefit of your startup here versus a Tor, an Orbit, which of course people are still going to purchase from, still lots of great books coming there, but what can you draw readers in more versus those big five?
In terms of that, I can't do anything for the reader. It is only what I can do for the author, which is the value proposition to the author. And, I haven't spoken a ton about this. I touched on it a bit earlier, but again, if an author does not have a following, they have no way of it getting out there. And that is a huge wake-up call. I see it all of the time where they're like, oh my God, I've wanted to be traditionally published my entire life, because they have this idea in their head of what that means. And they get the deal. And even if they get an advance, they get a $10,000 advance, which is pretty good for a first-time author who nobody knows about. They don't understand that they're not going to make any more money until that $10,000 is made up for in sales. And they don't understand that it doesn't come with a marketing budget. And they don't understand that even if it did come with a marketing budget, that means nothing, because people don't buy books based on ads. And it's like, you want that to be how commerce in this works. But the reality is, kind of like I said earlier, books are the hardest medium for time investment. If I make a music album, I can play you one song and within 3 minutes, you know if you like my style or not. For a movie, you can watch a 2-minute trailer and know within 2 minutes if it's worth your time. And even if it's not, it's 2 hours at max. The shelves behind you are filled with books that would take you 20 hours to read. That is an investment that is a difficult value proposition for the audience. And so getting people to invest that time, quite difficult. And the only reason that they would do it is because somebody that they trust told them, hey, this is worth it. You're going to feel things you've never felt before. Whatever it is. And us having a pre-established audience who is already dedicated towards that author's success in some fashion is something that Tor or Penguin Random House or anybody can't give you. I think it's a miracle that we're able to give it. And it's probably going to evolve over time. But show me another place that shows up at your doorstep and say, hey, the thing doesn't even exist yet. I've already got 900 people that bought it.
Yeah. No, you did not. 899. Okay, get that right. You'll never get that whole number.
I'm going to get that tattooed on my arm.
I saw you had some tattoos on your right arm there. What are those?
That is the Star of Macedonia for Alexander the Great, and then a crown. It was supposed to stand for King of Kings. I have my religious periods, but try not to bring that into the workspace.
Now, for those who are watching who've also made it to the end, and this has been a long, almost advertisement that we just really believe in what you're doing and think it's very cool. So I hope that people watching give this a genuine look and check out the links we'll have in the description. But for a little bit of fun at the end here, I wanted to ask you, what right now would you say is one of your favorite books that you most recently read? And what would you say is one that you kind of DNF'd and were like, I don't really like this one? Because I saw on your YouTube channel, I scrolled through a bit, and you had some videos you've made where you made some. I'll mention this afterward, but I'm going to say something that might make Richard a little upset. But I'll let you answer that first.
I know that I DNF'd some books that I said in that video that. Listen, I didn't want to do it. I had to do it. Okay.
I'm already anticipating it.
I will shout from the rooftops about my favorite book, The Empress of Salt and Fortune. Nevo, it's a novella, it's 100 pages, but
What?
that book to me is the book version of a Studio Ghibli film.
Wow.
It made me feel what I felt in Spirited Away, and I've never found another book that gives me that feeling. And it's not for everybody. There's a non-binary main character. You're reading they, them the whole time. So some people I've given it to have gotten confused about the pronouns, but once you get used to it, it doesn't matter. And it is just a beautifully written, heart-wrenching story about love and loss and war, and it's 100 pages in a fantasy setting.
Who published this?
That was Tor, I think.
Oh, then don't buy it from Tor. I mean, come on.
You gotta buy from Lynmoorehouse.
Lynmore only.
No,
that's pretty freaking cool, though. Especially that you recommended a 100-page book. That's way more reachable, especially with everybody's to-read lists being endless nowadays. So,
yeah, I mean, it's one of, like, you look it up on Goodreads. I think it's got like 5,000 reviews, so it's not a nobody book, but it still doesn't get the reach that Brandon Sanderson or Sarah J. Maas or whoever the hell gets. But real quick, I wanted to touch on that because you're talking about promoting a book by Tor. I came out hard in the Kickstarter about like the things that they're doing wrong. But as a reader, I mean, you can see behind me, these are all books published by top 5 companies and some that are not. They're not my enemy. Without them, I wouldn't be able to exist. I just want to try and pick up the space that they either are not focusing on or do not have the ability to, because there is such thing as being too big for certain niches. So just throwing that out there.
We like to say that with our channel. Like, there's big booktubers out there, but look, come comfortable right in here. We can still be somewhat authentic. We're not bought by Audible yet, but when you see the Audible ads coming up, we've lost everything.
Y'all have a great set, by the way. It looks amazing.
You know what? Daniel Green, he did the roasting bookshelves. You ever see those videos he does?
No, I saw that. He featured y'all's.
He had us in his thumbnail, which is so cool.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Oh, God. I built the bookshelf specifically to go over my couch. Like, I designed it exactly for the couch because that was going to be the set. And it just didn't work out. So it's so weird. There's this big space underneath here.
If you didn't point it out, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
But the stack in the middle, those are Terry Pratchett's signature series, right?
Yeah,
they're wonderful.
Yeah. So I've got a few of them in this stack right here. The only thing I remember about getting them was that shipping from the UK was an absolute bastard. But
yeah, it's annoying. I think I ordered like almost secondhand. There was some publishing house in America that has them as well.
Oh,
I think that's what I had to do.
I didn't know about that. I ordered directly from the factory, and I was like, well, if I'm doing it one time, I might as well go all out. So I ordered like 8 at once.
There you go.
Yeah, I need to do that because I want some of the other stuff from the Discworld Emporium.
Yeah.
There's some other little knickknacks I would love to have. But
yeah,
God, I love those books.
Go ahead.
You mentioned a book that I've DNF'd.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I can't believe it. I was about to cut off the conversation and say, get into the DNF. Don't escape that. I want to hear it. Yeah.
I know. So I very rarely DNF books. The last one I DNF'd was A Winter's Promise. And just because I didn't like the language style. It's a French written book that was translated into English. I don't know if the French is like verbatim and it would be the same, but I thought that it was flowery in a bad way. Like, this is how you lose the time war, is flowery in a good way in my mind. I didn't love this. I think the book that you are going to roast me for DNFing is Jonathan Strange and Dr. Norrell.
No, no.
That was not
I haven't read that one.
Tell us. Yeah.
No. I got nothing because I love Piranesi, but I don't think that Doctor Strange is there or whatever the hell that book is called. So what was the one I DNF that you were?
It wasn't a DNF. I misspoke then. It was one that you had a video on this, and it said, "Are these classics still worth reading?"
Oh no! All right, I'm gonna.
Yes. And one of the classics that was brought up was Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
What?
So I just wanted to give you the platform to apologize to Richard.
You better really hope everyone clicked off the video by now. No one's gonna.
We're no longer
support
friendly.
your channel.
You're about to have 898 backers.
Look, I have my reasons. Okay, I do not like what is referred to as walk and talk books, where like you're going from this place to go to that place, and there's maybe something that happens in the middle, but we got to travel really light, and that guy for some reason has a guitar. And like,
all right, that was funny. I'll give you that.
Yeah, it's just like talking and going to the next place. And like, I get the steeple that is that book in the genre and how it transformed everything. But I have a genuine belief that if it was released today, no one would know about it. So I will give Richard the floor for his argument on that.
And by the way, everything Richard's about to say,
honest.
I agree with, but I'll just let Richard take it over.
I'll be honest, the book isn't for everyone.
True.
I'll get right out of the gate there that I was listening to someone who I told, hey, you should try Lord of the Rings, and they said, oh yeah, I've just been skipping some of like the poems and the songs. I was like, don't bother reading the rest of it, just watch the movie. Because if that's not your thing, then it's not your thing. It's one of those.
You either buy into the whole vibe of what it is, or you don't. And I recognized early on I wasn't that guy.
Hey,
it's a story to get you just enveloped in the world. Like the emotions that I got from Lord of the Rings is it's just piqued my curiosity at every little turn, every little culture mentioned, and where I was making theories in my head as I was reading and going, oh, who is the wife of Tom Bombadil? And is it this elf that's actually referred to later, and this elf that's gone missing, or the Entwives? And I'm going through the maps and seeing what's actually happened. That is the exploration of the world that it's an experience I haven't had before. But to your point, the walking and talking books, I have a problem with Tad Williams' story, the Dragonbone Chair, because it is also very much a walk and talk book.
Right.
But I didn't get absorbed into the world. If you can't get absorbed into the world in your walking and talking books, then you're kind of out of luck.
And I was going to add on to that and say, you mentioned The Empress of Saltland. Was that the name of the book?
Salt and Fortune.
Salt and Fortune. Okay. Salt and Fortune. I have that for later. But you mentioned how it was similar to Studio Ghibli. Got you that feeling? I know plenty of people who... Studio Ghibli is very popular. Hayao Miyazaki's beautiful artwork. But some people just don't like the feeling of those movies. Whereas, honestly, Studio Ghibli, for me, can be very hit or miss. Yeah. So I can... Spirited Away, I respect it more than I love it. If that makes sense. I respect the works and the artistry of it, but to those other people who might have seen it when they were younger, or maybe they even saw it as adults. But a lot of people I know would saw it as they were a kid, and it has this nostalgic feeling. The artwork's beautiful. It's also a different storytelling type. I think it's called Kisho Tenketsu, where Japanese story structures are sometimes structured differently so that the arcs in stories, it's not just your simple 3-act structure, but it's like a twist, and then I don't know too much about it, but that's what I've heard. So anyways, they're hit or miss for me, whereas my personal favorites, My Neighbor Totoro, love that movie. I got the feeling from that movie, and I just got this wondrous, nostalgic, peaceful feeling. But then whereas the Kiki's Delivery Service, another Studio Ghibli film, I didn't like it. I mean, some people like the feeling of that, but I was just like, I was just way too bored. So would you say the same for, Lord of the Rings might not be your kind of feeling, but do you have that for any other works? Like Studio Ghibli, do you like all their movies? Do you just like certain types of... Do you get what I'm saying with this?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that there's anything that like across the board, I'm going to pick it up just because it's their work. Like people have their auto-buy authors. I don't have anybody I would put on that list. I mean, as much as I like even Brandon Sanderson's work, he's put out some stuff that I have no interest in. I'm quite selective in what I spend my time on media-wise. And to Richard's point, talking about some things are not for people. I don't think that there is a single piece of art created ever that is meant for everybody.
Yep.
There are going to be people, no matter what it is, no matter how great it is, genius or anything, that is just not going either they're not going to get it, like, however maybe they were raised in a way that they don't understand the background of it or what's happening. Like, cool, I fully understand. Like the feeling that you described in Lord of the Rings is essentially a sense of wonder. Well, that's my favorite feeling as well, but I didn't feel it in those books. I felt it in something else. So we're both feeling the same feeling, but getting it in different ways. So yeah, it's for some people, it's not for some people. So
you have every right to be wrong. Absolutely.
Right. I would never look at somebody and tell them that they shouldn't like the Lord of the Rings. I just have to point out why I don't like it, because that's my personal feeling about it.
I'm really glad we kept this to the end. That was important. If we had that in the beginning, everyone clicked off and like, I'm gonna They're just gonna get my refund. On
there was too much tension.
Yeah.
Rich would not have been able to sat through the rest of the interview. It just wouldn't have worked.
Well, how about one for each of you? Is there a recent book that you've DNF'd?
Oh, a recent?
Yes. But I can't say what it is because it was a book that was sent to us.
Oh,
and they're very kind, and we always appreciate people sending books. But it was someone's self-published book. So I won't say that because I'm not gonna punch somebody who put all this effort and work. I would do that if it was more of a big author, because I'm not punching up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably the most controversial pick for me is Jade City. I DNF'd that quite a while ago. That actually, the bookmark is still in here. I think I got through just under a half of it, and I always see nothing but positive things about the series, and I just could not get into it. I couldn't connect with any of the characters, and it made me just
I recently made a video about that one. I did finish it, but I think I said like, from a technical perspective, I think that it is great. Like, I don't have anything to point out and go like, look, the characters are bad, the world is bad, blah blah blah. My thing with it was I thought that it was barely a fantasy book. Like, I didn't feel any sense of wonder with it. It's basically a book about drug lords, and Jade is essentially PCP. It makes you faster, stronger. If you take too much of it, you die. And I was like, I don't.
Oh my God, you guys are becoming friends again.
You're back in the good graces again.
So I get it.
It was hard for me to connect with the drug lord characters, where none of them were particularly, not that they weren't good, like they're all bad to a degree, but I just wasn't rooting for any of them. And I just didn't care what happened to them in the next chapter, which is odd because with Joe Abercrombie, I love his characters, and they do some awful stuff. Terrible people, but for some reason you root for him. I don't know how he does a really good balance of making his awful people do sometimes good things, or just it's fun enough that you want to see them succeed.
Yeah, it's so interesting, the things that we pick up on books that we either like it, like we like it in this, we didn't like it in that one. It's the whole mesh. Like you gotta have multiple pieces, and if one of those pieces is missing, it throws the whole dynamic off.
Yeah.
Well, we can't wait to read the first book published by Lynmoorehouse. We're looking forward to it. September, those are coming?
September, but May 1st.
The tentative date.
September
May 1st is that first day.
May 1st is the first date. There will be a whole round of marketing videos that go out about it. So anybody associated to the project or my TikTok is going to know about it. But just really, thank you guys so much for having me on. This is amazing.
No, thank you a ton. It's an honor. And we don't know when this episode is coming out exactly. We're recording this.
It'll be before May 1st.
But it possibly will be before May 1st. I think it will, because we have another episode. So I hope it is before May 1st. But if not, all the info will still be down there, and it will be available in May, correct? So it's not like there's a deadline. There's
going to be a 2-month period whenever people see this. Yeah.
Right, until the July mark hits for the... Got it.
All right.
Correct.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Go down below if you want to support the channel. Hit the Patreon link down below. Subscribe, comment, let us know what you think, and go check out Lynmore Publishing. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right.
Cheers.
Bye, y'all.
Thank y'all.